The IPPS controversy is the next item on our agenda this morning, and essentially it's really between ASU and the federal government. How far so far? And besides, you know, many times when we hear, many people believe that the only time you hear labor agitation, especially whether it's a Nigeria Labour Congress or any association, NUPENG, it always has to do with money. Even as to now, you know, that's what's happening. It's about IPPS, you know, which the payment platform which the federal government is insisting has to serve for all ministries, departments, and agencies. And this morning, to have a conversation on that, we have the president, well, the chairman of ASU in UNILAG, Mr. Dele Ashiru. He joins us in company of Professor Oyebanji Oyelaran Oyeyinka, who is an SSA to the president on industrialization. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Let me begin with you, Mr. Ashiru. So this issue has been ongoing for a while, but the president insists, you know, that as far as the federal government is concerned, it's IPPS for all MDAs and no other. Are you saying that ASU, the universities are not MDAs, are not no part of any MDA?
Certainly. Universities are not government ministries. They are not departments nor agencies of government. Universities are universal communities where knowledge is produced.
But they operate under the Ministry of Education, don't they?
Yeah, the Ministry of Education is the supervising ministry.
And
for education.
Universities are also supervised by the National Universities Commission,
which is a parastatal of the Ministry of Education.
So why should the university, the payment system, not be controlled by the federal government?
No, we are not saying that the payment system should not be controlled by federal government. As we speak, it's being controlled by federal government. What we are saying is that lumping payroll of people who work in the universities, particularly academic staff, under the IPPS would create a lot of problem for the survival of the Nigerian university system. And we say this because if you look at most government policies, you find out that at inception, they couch it in very beautiful narratives. But when it comes to implementation, you find the implementation not only faulty, but inflicting pains, injuries, and dislocation on the people. This,
in what way, Mr. Ashiru, will this affect negatively, because I think that is the concern of ASU, in what way will these IPs that the federal government is insisting on affect the productivity of university lecturers?
Thank you very much. In the first instance, the way universities operate is not like a government bureaucracy. Take, for example, you may want to create a new program. As I speak with you, the University of Lagos is running a program on transportation to look at the transportation situation in Lagos and in the entire country and find constructive scientific ways of resolving all of these challenges. Now, such programs will require personnel, will require academic who may come from any part of the world. Should you want to subject the university to the bureaucracy, you know, of employing personnel for such program, it means that that program will never start.
I'll argue with that one for a bit, but let Prof take on this. First of all, Prof, how do you react to this FG ASU controversy on this IPPS program?
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm Senior Special Advisor to the President of the Africa Development Bank. Okay. And I'm speaking, I think, as a former teacher also at the United Nations University. But let me speak on the issue of productivity that you just asked him. I think we should avoid strikes as much as we can. Strikes breed all manner of things. First, it stops learning it impacts teachers themselves, it impacts students, it impacts parents. And what you have in our system has been what you might call serial strikes all over the last couple of years. So what you find is a university system where nobody trusts anymore. But even locally, parents don't want to send their students to wards to Nigerian universities. So my take is that there's a huge impact on the productivity of the university system. And it cuts across both the input, that is the quality of students that are enrolling in university, process, that is the learning environment, the teachers' quality themselves, and of course the funding of university, which I think is at the heart of what we are talking about. The way universities have been funded in our country, of course, leaves much to be desired. This is at the heart of it. And of course, on the last leg of it is the output. The output of universities, of our university system, has been really degraded. And just to put it very bluntly, you have graduates who cannot do very basic stuff. And strikes and disruptions of university system doesn't help this matter. So I think my focus had been always on, we need to ask ourselves, what is this doing to the system? Clearly, you have issues of coordination. Coordination failure is at the heart of these kinds of things, industrial relations issues between ASUs, the government, institutional coordination is broken down completely.
Okay. If I may, Bodin, just to be clear,
Yeah.
do you agree with ASU's position on IPPS? Do you feel that IPPS will, in quotes, stifle ASU in its day-to-day operations? Do you think that?
I'm not a legal person, and I don't want to go there. I like to, like I said, my take is on the broader picture of running a university system that is, even the government itself as dysfunctional. And that is really my worry.
Okay, so whichever way it goes, your big picture is that universities work in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Okay, now you have said, well, ASU in general says this idea of IPPS is not homegrown. I think that's been a major conversation. And if I get you correctly, you say you have a better alternative for the government. Am I right? So what is that? And I'd like you to speak to this perception. People feel, what is ASU hiding? Why don't you want to be in IPPS? The president says this is meant to work for us. So people are thinking, is ASU hiding anything? So on one hand, you have an alternative. What is it? And is ASU hiding anything?
Well, I think I would like to answer the question in the reverse order.
Right.
ASU has nothing to hide. Government don't give ASU money. Government gives money to respective governing councils in universities that are administered by administrators, not ASU.
And then your members get paid.
Our members get paid.
Right.
Certainly they work, so they must be paid. Now, talking about alternatives, yes, we have alternative. At the moment, it's being developed, so that it could take care of those gaps we have seen in IPPS. Indeed, we have given it a name, Nigerian Universities Transparency and Accountability System. Since government says what it wants is transparency in how, monies are released for personnel emoluments in the university. So we have a team that is currently fine-tuning that program. And at its completion, we will challenge anybody, including the Accountant General of the Federation, to put IP side by side with our own alternative. And then we'll see where we go from there.
Some would argue, Mr. Ashuru, that the fact that ASU is raising issues about IPs means that ASU is not very, very confident that the governing council can actually serve the interests of ASU, of the teaching and non-teaching staff of the universities.
No, that will not be a correct way.
Because, if your concern is about IPs, impeding on the speed at which universities ought to move. That responsibility should be that of the governing council of the university and not just us.
What we are saying now is that IPs will take away that responsibility from the governing council. That is the bone of contention. The moment you implement IPs, you take all of those matters out of the purview of the university system. If, in fact, as I speak with you, for you to make any recruitment in the university, you will need to get clearance either from the head of service or the secretary of the government of the federation and such bureaucracies.
How is that a problem?
Well, it's a problem because government bureaucracies in Nigeria, we know how they function. And if you have to subject, it also impinges on the ability of the university to deliver on its core mandate.
Again,
take for example, you want to hire in your university. We were shocked when at, the screening of a minister, a senator told Nigerians that in the last 4 years, we never took anybody from our constituency. We also have people who are looking for jobs, which ipso facto means that if you require a job and the approving authority is outside the university, you will be handed with a list of a group of people who may not have business in the university system. Even as I speak, it is happening within our universities, where from agencies of government responsible for supervision of education will hand down orders, lists, to vice chancellors, which they must obey. And we are saying that universities must be insulated from this government bureaucracy if we really want universities to serve the purposes which Prof has just mentioned here. A dependent intellectual community cannot raise ideas for the development of any society.
Just so we put things in perspective, we all agree that our universities are not where they ought to be at this point. There's a lot that leaves, to be desired in terms of, the quality. You mentioned it earlier. So I want to believe that's where this conversation drives to, from the government's end and from ASU's end. And on one hand, there are reports that some members in your union might perhaps enroll for IPs. I'm sure you have heard that report. And it begs the question, what would you do then? If some members in ASU say, you know what, fine, let's register for or enroll with IPs. And take this in perspective. The president is on IPs. Judges are on IPs. The military. So they have their own exigencies
Is
too.
CBN on IPs?
And they are on IPs.
Is FIRS on IPs? Is National Assembly on IPs? Is CBN on IPs?
But you don't have, your alternative is not ready now, but IPs is ready.
Yes, and you see, what is to be done in civilized societies? If a section, indeed the intellectual arm of the society, is challenging a particular policy of government, I think what is important is to ensure status quo ante, which was what the leadership of the National Assembly told us when we engaged them. Prof talked about strikes. We are mindful of the disruptions that come into the system when you have needless strikes, like the Accountant General of the Federation is trying to push the university system into as we speak. And that's why we have taken the matter before other, structures of government,
you say
like the Senate.
To push universities into strike, but this is, as it were, meant to. If you've seen reports that say IPs has saved the government billions.
That
of
is
naira.
not true. Where is the billions of naira?
So this is your word against the word of the Accountant General.
Then let us bring to the table documentary evidence to support these claims.
And the fact that he has saved the government ghost workers.
And let me make this point. Right. On Monday, our union paid caused a paid advertorial in the Guardian and in the Nation's newspaper, stating the correct position against all of the propaganda by the Accountant General of the Federation. Unlike their swift response to our first advertorial, up till now, they have still not been able to respond to any of the issues we raised in the advertorial.
Let's expect that the
We are saying
accountant
that,
general, Mr. Shuru,
Yes,
let's expect that the accountant general has heard you now and will respond. But we are really concerned, and I'm sure that Prof is really concerned about how productive things get. You've raised concerns about the fact that productivity in any industry would be informed by the kind of funding, the kind of system that it operates. If you could, from all that has been said so far, if you could deduce, how do you think this has worked in other climes, and how do you think it should work? You are an academic, so you understand this well.
No, thank you. And this is, for me, two things that comes out of this last few minutes. Is the autonomy of universities that I believe they're trying to fight for. And of course also the historic role of universities, which apart from teaching and learning includes research. The major issue that for me had been at the heart of all of this, the lack of coordination between universities, governments, even the governance system within universities. Just asking, for example, whether there's a trust between ASU and the governance system of the university.
Exactly.
There seems to be total lack of trust between all the arms. And what this results in is that universities are not functioning. Our universities are not functioning the way they should.
So you have been able to deduce that there is a trust deficit
There's
and
a trust
even productivity deficit between the governing council of the universities and the academic staff.
There's a trust deficit. There's a productivity deficit because we really don't see much research coming out of Nigerian universities. When I went to University of Ife many years ago. I finished in 1978. At that time, we were hoping that in the next 20 years, we'll be at the level of MIT in terms of research outputs, in terms of students, and so forth. Look back today, and this at the heart of all of this is all of these cleavages, between all arms of government, So I believe that one of the first things that we need to do is build trust, begin to build trust, and not have set positions between the different arms. We are not working for ourselves. It's not about us as associations and individuals. It's about this country.
While ASU has been, at the forefront of the agitation against IPs at the university levels, it would seem like the university governing councils are comfortable with it.
This is the point. You imagine that this kinds of thing will be trashed out internally between ASU and the governance system within universities. It's not there. And ASU is always viewed as, sort of, I don't know how to describe it. We should, describe it. Unfortunately, and I can empathize with him that they have to take certain stance to change society. But my point is that when two elephants fight, is the ground that suffers. Our children suffer. We are viewed so unfavorably globally. There's no Nigerian university in the first 500, top 500 universities. University of Ibadan, the first university, is ranked, I think, 2,000 and something. Whereas when we were in school, I remember universities from the United States, from the UK, wanted to have affiliations with us.
So IPPS is actually not the problem here. We should actually look at the big picture.
It's the big picture. It's not IP. It's not the issues. These are outcomes of much deeper problems.
Okay.
And I think we should really focus on them from the fundamentals. This is my point.
It's been eye-opening, and I want to believe that both ASU and the governing councils of the universities would take a cue from what you have said, from the wealth of experience that you've shared with us. Professor Oyebanji Oyelaran Oyeyinka is the SSA to the president of the Africa Development Bank on industrialization. Thank you very much for your time this morning. And Mr. Dele Ashiru is the chairman of ASU at UNILAG. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much for this.
Back in a moment to take some of your feedback. Please stay with us. All right, so just before we go, some of your comments. We'll begin with this one by Zemo, who sends in a message and says, Sunrise Daily, please, the last thing the common man needs now is tax talks. He's not interested in the nomenclatures, finance bill or whatever name it is called. He's already paying more for what he is getting. Why place more burden on him? I think it's one of the questions that we asked earlier.
And I remember when he said, isn't it better for 1 million homes to pay the government to provide water than, 1 million homes building their own boreholes?
It'll cost more.
That's what we have. This next one, this next tweet comes from Yusuf Suleiman. And he starts by saying, please kindly ask Prof if they are civil servants or not. Well, Prof has stepped out. But then he goes on to say, the distinction they are given on MDA is wrong. IPPS is national policy for salary payment of civil servants. There you have it.
The system would act like BVN, and this would prevent them from getting multiple payments that they have been getting over time. That's an interesting perspective.
Tell me about it. And this one is from engineer K.O. Seidu, who says, on IPPS controversy, the ASU struggle on Sunrise Daily now, watching the submissions of ASU chairman of Unilag only brings out the level of fraud these people are perpetrating in the university system. Oh my. Fake recruitment and ghost workers being their way. ASU has no case.
In my own opinion. It's good you end with that IMO, in my own opinion.
It sounded like the name of a state in
Exactly,
Nigeria.
but apparently it isn't. And finally, this one from Adeyoju SOS. Lagos-Ibadan Expressway needs adaptive intelligent traffic management system. Interesting. A policy that regulates traffic based on volume of traffic for both outbound Lagos and inbound Lagos. The FRC guest needs to know the dynamics of road management. I think that's important. Getting creative with this so we don't repeat the same thing over and over again. That's from Adeyoju SOS.
Then how are we going to get creative with the attitude of motorists, the road drivers on the roads? Well, that's another conversation altogether. Well, that's the much we can take on Sunrise Daily today. Thanks so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. I'm Ayo Makinde.
And I am Kayode Okikere.
And Amal Pelgo Yusuf, do have a lovely day ahead.